He slid divorce papers across the table and smiled, so I signed them. He thought I'd beg. He didn't know I'd been preparing for 3 months. My husband slid the divorce papers across the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening and smiled like he'd already won. "Sign," Mark said, leaning back in his chair. "Accept Tiffany into our lives or we're done." He expected tears, maybe begging. At the very least, he expected me to freeze. Instead, I reached into the junk drawer, pulled out a pen, and signed my name in one clean stroke. Big letters, clear date, no hesitation. His smile disappeared instantly. His face went pale. Because in that single moment, Mark Reynolds, the man who had spent 15 years treating me like background furniture, realized he had made the biggest miscalculation of his life. He had underestimated me. Again. My name is Linda. I'm 48 years old. I live in a quiet suburb of Chicago with my 2 sons, Jason, who is 16, and Tyler, who just turned 10. 1 week ago, I would have described my life as stable. Then my husband tried to hand me a mistress like she was a household expense I needed to budget for. Here's what he forgot. I am a forensic auditor by training, and I had been quietly auditing him for 3 months. It started at a company awards dinner 3 months ago. I was standing near the bar, holding a glass of water, when I heard Mark laughing with his younger coworkers across the room. "Linda's a good woman," he said, loud enough for the whole group to hear. But honestly, she'd be completely lost without me. They laughed. He laughed harder. I stood there completely still, humiliation burning behind my eyes, and smiled like I hadn't heard a word. But I heard every single word. The truth he had rewritten so many times he actually believed it. 15 years ago, I was a senior auditor making 6 figures. Mark was charming, ambitious, and completely broke. When he wanted to launch his logistics firm, he came to me with a dream and no plan. I believed in him. I quit my career after our first baby. I cashed out my retirement account to fund his first office lease. I used my inheritance, money my father left me, as seed money for a business that now had 12 employees and a solid reputation. I ran payroll at midnight when he forgot. I caught the accounting errors that would have sunk him in year 2. I made the business survivable when it was still fragile and scared. Once the money came, Mark rewrote the history. The we became I. The sacrifices I made became invisible. The woman who built the foundation became the woman he kept around for appearances. After that dinner, I started paying attention to the obvious signs I had been too trusting to notice. New cologne I didn't recognize, a phone that was suddenly always face down, late nights with vague excuses, coming home smelling like someone else's perfume and someone else's life. Then I found the earring. It was cheap, rhinestones and a bright pink feather, wedged under the front passenger seat of his car. I held it up. "Whose is this?" Mark didn't blink. "Dave's daughter left it. She rode with me last week." Dave was his business partner. Dave did not have a daughter. Mark lied to me with the ease of someone who had been practicing for a long time. He looked at me like I was furniture asking an inconvenient question. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened my old laptop, and I started working. Mark had changed all his passcodes. What he forgot was that I had set up his email recovery questions 10 years ago, back when he could barely figure out how to attach a document. First pet, Buster. Mother's maiden name, Collins. 10 minutes later, I was inside his inbox. I wasn't looking for love letters. I was looking for receipts. I found them quickly. Dinner reservations for 2 on nights he told me he was at client meetings, a weekend in Napa Valley during a conference I could never find on his company calendar, and then a credit card statement I had never seen before, for an account I did not know existed. Mark Reynolds, cardholder. Tiffany Miller, authorized user. But the affair wasn't what made my hands start to shake. I logged into our son's college savings accounts. Jason's should have been close to $85,000. We had been contributing for years. The balance read $1,112. Tyler's should have been around $30,000. The balance read $1,500. I scrolled through the transaction history, wire transfer after wire transfer, going back 14 months. Recipient, Tiffany Luxury Apartments LLC. Memo, deposit and lease. And then one transfer stopped my breathing entirely. October 12th. Tyler's birthday. The same day, Mark sat across from our 10-year-old boy at a pizza restaurant and said, "Sorry, buddy, things are a little tight right now." The same night, Tyler blew out his birthday candles and asked for nothing expensive because he didn't want to stress his dad out. Mark had stolen from our children to pay for his secret life. I downloaded everything: statements, wire transfers, receipts, the lease agreement. I backed it all up twice. By the time the sun came up, I was not crying. I was planning. That morning, I called a divorce attorney named Sarah. She reviewed my evidence and looked up at me with steady eyes. "Linda," she said quietly, "he is in serious trouble." She filed for a temporary exclusive occupancy and a financial restraining order based on dissipation of marital assets. Mark had absolutely no idea. Meanwhile, I did some deeper digging, and what I uncovered changed everything. Tiffany Miller's legal name was Tiffany Vance. She was married to Robert Vance, the CEO of Vance Logistics, one of the largest names in Mark's industry and a major shareholder in Mark's own company. Mark wasn't Tiffany's boyfriend. Mark was Tiffany's secret. I called Robert. He listened. Then he went very quiet for a moment and said, "Let's talk." Mark walked in on Tuesday evening smelling like expensive whiskey and someone else's floral perfume. He dropped a thick envelope on the kitchen table like he was serving a legal notice. "Sit," he said. I sat. Inside the envelope were divorce papers. "I met someone," he said. "Her name is Tiffany. She makes me feel alive in ways I haven't felt in years." He paused to let that land. Then he smiled and offered me his deal, the arrangement he clearly had been rehearsing for weeks. We'd stay married on paper. He'd be home during the week for the boys. Weekends, he'd be with her. I'd keep the house and the lifestyle. All I had to do was accept it. Accept her. Accept the humiliation with a grateful smile. "You can't survive on your own, Linda," he said. His voice was gentle and cruel at the same time. "I'm giving you a good deal. Take it." I reached into the junk drawer. I signed the papers without blinking. Then I slid them back across the table. "I choose actual divorce," I said. "I'm done." The confidence collapsed off his face in real time. "Wait, Linda, you misunderstood. I was negotiating." "You weren't negotiating. You were bullying. There's a difference." Then I placed the court order on the table in front of him. Exclusive occupancy. Effective immediately. He stared at it like it was written in a language he had never learned. I pulled 2 suitcases out of the hallway closet. I had packed them that morning while he was at work. "You have 5 minutes," I said. He tried to get angry, then he tried charm, then he tried pleading, the kind of pleading that only comes out when someone realizes their power is completely gone. "She means nothing," he said at the end. "She meant enough for you to steal from our children. Get out." Mark left dragging his suitcases, muttering threats that sounded increasingly hollow. I locked the door behind him. Then I turned around and saw my boys sitting on the stairs. Jason looked exhausted, the kind of tired that doesn't come from missing sleep. Tyler was clutching his stuffed dinosaur with both hands. "Mom," Jason said quietly, "we already know." He showed me his phone, Tiffany's Instagram account, public and wide open, full of gifts and hotel check-ins, with Mark grinning in half of them like a man playing a different character in a different life. Tyler's voice was barely above a whisper. "Did he take my birthday money, Mom?" I didn't lie to him. "Yes, but I am getting it back, every single dollar." Mark called the next week with a new strategy. His CEO was making a promotion decision, and the CEO famously loved family men with stable home lives. "Come to the company picnic Saturday," Mark said, his voice smooth again. "Smile, hold my hand for 2 hours. If you do that, I'll sign the house over with no fight." He thought he was bribing me into saving his career. He was actually handing me the perfect stage. I agreed in a small, tired voice. "For the boys," I said. Then I called Robert Vance. Saturday arrived. I wore a red dress Mark once told me was too aggressive for a company event. I wore red lipstick. I kept my face completely calm. The picnic was cheerful. Grills going, families everywhere, cold drinks in the July heat. Mark's CEO was moving towards the gazebo to make his promotion announcement. Mark stood nearby, polished and ready, the picture of a successful man with everything under control. Tiffany stood at the edge of the crowd, smiling. Then, 2 black SUVs and a police cruiser rolled into the parking lot. Robert Vance stepped out. Behind him came attorneys and forensic auditors carrying folders. Tiffany saw her husband before he saw her. The drink slipped out of her hand and shattered on the concrete. Robert walked directly to the gazebo, took the microphone from the startled event coordinator, and said in a calm and measured voice, "I apologize for the interruption, but there is a crime in progress at this event, and it cannot wait." The entire crowd went silent. "That woman is my wife,"